In today's video, we'll be doing a Linux system administration similar to a test or interview questions. This is a great way to challenge yourself to see if you're ready. I think I know Linux fairly well, but this is going to be a true test for me and for you. So join me as we read and answer the questions, and I will share my thoughts and my reasoning, and together we'll read the explanations for the correct answer. If you want, pause before my answer to play along. And also, these questions, by the way, are created with the help of AI. They are not copyrighted. Also, they're not perfectly phrased like a human being, but this is kind of realistic. So, without further ado, let's start. Question 1. What command can be used to determine the current run level of a Linux system? Is it systemctl get default, or run level, or who tac-r, or all of the above? I don't know the answer. I kind of remember what run levels are. You can have multiple processes at different run levels. I think it's like priority, but it's so long since I've had to be concerned with it, so I've forgotten. If I were to guess, I would say run level, but I'm not sure. I don't want to go too heavy into the logic. Let's see what the answer is. The answer is D, all of the above. Okay. All listed commands can be used to determine the current run level, depending on the specific Linux distro and initialization system used. Okay, so like init or systemd. Interesting. So note to self to follow up, read up again on run levels. Question 2. Which command is used to modify the default behavior of the cron daemon for a specific user? Is it cron tab tac e? Is it cron.allow, cron.deny, or systemctl edit cron d? Edit the behavior by default of the daemon for a specific user. I don't know. I'm used to just looking at cron tab tac l just to see what's in there and make edits. I'm going to guess it's cron tab tac e just because it sounds like an interactive way. You know, in an interview I would just say, look, I don't know, but it's probably cron tab because that's where I've often edited things. But it's a pure guess. Let's have a look. I was right. Answer is A, cron tab tac e. This command allows users to edit their own cron jobs, indeed, thereby modifying the behavior of the cron daemon for that user. Okay, so E must mean edit. But note to self, go revisit cron tab. Next question, number 3. In Linux, which file is used to configure the network interfaces? Is it etc network interfaces? Is it etc sysconfig network scripts slash ifcfg multiple files? Is it etc netplan star.yaml files, or all of the above? Where do you configure the NIC in Linux? I feel like this is a similar question to earlier. Like, it might depend on which distro you have, whether it's like Red Hat based or Debian or Ubuntu based. That's going to be my guess. So let's see what the answer is. All of the above. Indeed, different Linux distros use various config files for network interfaces, including the ones listed depending on the init system and also the networking service in use. So yeah, that's the tough thing about Linux tests, is you could be tested on multiple distros, and it's always going to be tough because you can't just say to the interviewer, well, I'm a bit rusty on Red Hat because I mostly use Debian, or the other way around. They unfortunately just not going to want to hear that. So note to self, I'm probably going to do a future video on the key differences in key areas of Linux, so note to self. Next question, number 4. What is the purpose of the chroot or chroot command in Linux? Is it change the ownership of a file? Is it change the root directory for the current running process? Is it change user permissions? Is it change the host name of the system? So it's been a while since I used chroot, but obviously to change the ownership of a file is not chroot. That's going to be chown, and to change the user permissions is going to be chmod. I don't think it's the host name. I think it's B, change the root directory for the current running process. I've never used it, but I think that it's B. Let's find out. Indeed, it's changed the root process for the current running process. Chroot command changes the apparent root directory for the current running process and its children, effectively isolating them from the rest of the system. Okay, it isolates them. Oh, I see. It doesn't mean like make root in any kind of powerful way, which is what I thought when I saw the word root. I'm guessing that it creates a dedicated whatever you choose at the time isolation. Interesting. Note to self, read up on chroot. I don't know if you knew what that was, but that's also a note for you. Question 5. Which of the following commands would you use to increase the priority of a running process? Is it nice, re-nice, kill, or top? Increase the priority. Oof. Okay, so I know it's not. I know it's going to be nice or re-nice. It's definitely not going to be kill. That's killer process. It won't be top because that's view the CPU memory usage of a process and other stats. So it's going to be nice or re-nice. And I know that re-nice is used when you want to change the nice level. I think it's called that. So I think it's re-nice. I think it might be a trick question, nice. But I could be wrong, so don't imprint this in my memory. Let's have a look what the answer is. Indeed, it's re-nice. Re-nice is used to change the priority of a running process, allowing you to increase or decrease its scheduling priority. I haven't used that, honestly, in a long time. I just haven't needed to. Question 6. What does the IP tables command manage? Is it user permissions, kernel parameters, network packet filtering, or disk partitions? So I happen to know that IP tables is to do with firewalls, basically. It's networking, firewalling, to do with networking. So it's not user permissions, it's not disk partitions, it's not kernel parameters, whatever those are. It's going to be network packet filtering. If I remember correctly, I think it might even have something like an in filter out or something like that. Let's see what the answer is. Number 6, what does IP tables command manage? Indeed, it is used to set up, maintain, and inspect the tables of IPv4 packet filter rules in the Linux kernel. That's it. Packet filter rules, or in more loose terms, firewall rules. Some people might call it, although strictly speaking, it's not really the firewall. You've got firewall command for that. IP tables is a lot more basic. It is filtering at the packet level with rules. Great. Question 7. What file contains the configuration for the SSH server? Is it etc/ssh /sshd_config? Is it the same but SSH_config? Is it etc/host.allow, or is it etc/secureTTY? I'm pretty sure it is, just because I've got it built into my memory from having edited this file a while ago, or it's something that I do on new servers, so I've got this imprinted in my mind. I'm pretty sure that it's the first one, SSHD_config, which I can understand that someone might not be sure if it's the one with D or the one without the D. I think the D relates to the daemon, but anyway, I'm pretty sure that it's a SSHD_config. Let's see what the right answer is. And I was correct. The SSH server config is stored in SSHD_config, where you can set various options for the SSH daemon. I was exactly right. Question 8. Which command would you use to monitor system logs in real time? Is it tail-tac/var/log/syslog? Is it logwatch? Is it dmessage? Or is it journalctl tac follow? Okay. Well, it's not logwatch. I'll say that first of all. Now this does depend a little bit on the distro. Things are done in slightly different ways. I do have a video on this actually, so check it out if you haven't seen it on logging. But unless you refresh this going into an interview or a test, it's always a little bit difficult to remember. Now journalctl is typically used to follow some service logs, and I don't know if that includes the system logs. I've never heard of tac follow, so I'm going to disregard that. I think it's going to either be tail-tac-f, var-log syslog, or dmessage, and I'm not sure which, to be honest. And I do wonder if it might depend on the distro. So I don't know. I'm not going to commit. If I really work it out and try and narrow it down, I run the risk. I don't want to do this. I run the risk of committing false logic to my brain. I'm not going to do that. Let's see what the answer is. The answer is, wow, D, journalctl tac follow. So that command allows real-time monitoring logs collected by the system D journal. You know what? I am going to read up on this. This was not in my video. I'm curious about this. That is very, very interesting, to follow the logs for system D, that it says it's journalctl tac follow. So note to self, go back to logging, in particular this command. Question 9. Which of the following is not a valid run level in sysv init? 0, 1, 6, or 7. Interesting. I'll be honest, I actually thought that they were all valid. I thought for some reason it was 0 through to 9, But I'm gonna take a wild guess here that maybe 0 is not, or maybe there's a limited number of runtimes. For all I know, it could be that 7 is out of range or something. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to commit myself, but you heard what my probable guesses are, so let's see what the answer is. Okay, it's 7. Interesting, and it was my logic was kind of correct, that I figured that maybe the run levels had a limited range. Indeed, it says they range from 0 to 6, and 7 is not a standard run level. I must admit that 7 stuck out to me, and I was like, I've never seen a run level 7 before. Interesting. Question 10. What is the purpose of the xefstab file? Is it to configure user permissions? Is it to define how disk partitions are mounted? Is it to set up network interfaces? Or is it D, to manage system services? Now, I happen to remember what you either know it or you don't, and it's B. It is how disk partitions are mounted. I just remember that xefstab is where the config for the mounts is stored. So, yeah, it's definitely there. User permissions is a different file, and I actually forget what that is. It's not C, it's not Nix, and it's definitely not system services either. But it would be a good idea to review all of those, because potentially any of those could come up. So let's have a look just to confirm. Pretty sure I'm right. Indeed, it's to define how disk partitions are mounted. xefstab file contains info about disk partitions and how they should be mounted at boot time or on demand. Indeed. So we're halfway through question 11. If you're enjoying this, please give a like to this video. Please consider later on maybe sharing this on Reddit. That would be awesome. I've never seen had anyone do that for me before, and it would be awesome for someone to share any of my videos there. Anyway, let's get on with it. Question 11. Which command can be used to troubleshoot DNS issues in Linux? Is it ping, nslookup, traceroute, or dig? Well, I know the answer to this. It's dig. Dig is a very, very old command. It's not ping. That's for sending an ICMP echo request and testing in general for connectivity, not DNS. DNS is a different protocol. It's not traceroute. That is to trace to trace a path from you through to some other endpoint, and especially to zero in on where there might be latency or something like that. You're looking at the hops. Now, I just realized that NSLOOKUP, NSLOOKUP, name server lookup, you could actually troubleshoot DNS with this. You would do, if I remember correctly, NSLOOKUP on a domain name, on a domain name, and see if you can get back the IP, if I remember correctly, or it may support both ways. And dig is a bit different. Dig is when you really want to look up a name and get some of the more verbose name server information, if I remember correctly. I've actually changed my mind. I think it's going to be NSLOOKUP. Like, I would start there if I had a DNS issue. I wouldn't actually start with dig. This would be if I wanted more info on a known name server, or a DNS name and some of the info behind it. It's not my first protocol for troubleshooting. Let's have a look, see what the answer is. Number 11. Indeed. Okay, yeah, you know what? I was right. There we go. I was doubting myself, and it's actually both NSLOOKUP and dig. And I thought that was the case. Both NSLOOKUP and dig are tools used to query DNS to help troubleshoot DNS-related issues. Indeed. Note to self, I'm going to just double check the precise info, the difference between those two. I'm just used to exhausting both of those in my troubleshooting sequence, but it would help me to actually remind myself what they both contain. So that's my note to self. Question 12. Which command would you use to find out which processor is using the most memory? Is it psaux, tac sort equals, tac %mem? Is it top, htop, or all of the above? I happen to know it's all of them. I mean, psaux is the first port of call, but by default it won't sort, and you need to add this kind of switch to it. It's a bit cumbersome. It's easier to use top or htop. They have built-in sorting that you can press a command while you're in there. So it's going to be all of the above. Indeed, all of the above. All can be used to monitor and find processors consuming the most memory on a system. Question 13. What is the primary function of the systemd service manager? Is it disk management, process management, service management and initialization, or network management? Well, I mean, this is pretty obvious. They've given a clue there by calling it a system manager. It is, well, maybe they haven't, but Yeah, I just know it's related to services. So it's going to be C, service management and initialization. It's not going to be disk, process, or network management. I mean, processes are related to services, and they are definitely inextricably linked. But to be more precise, answer to this question is going to be C. It better be. Let's see what the answer is. Indeed. Service management and initialization is primarily responsible for managing services and initializing the system during boot. Indeed. Question 14. Which command is used to check disk space usage in Linux? Is it df, du, ls, or both A and B? Ooh, interesting. Well, I know it's not ls. And normally, to check disk usage, I would use df, disk free. Du, it would have been my first choice. And du kind of gives you other disk info. Does it give usage though? You know what? I think it does, even though I wouldn't normally use it. I think it does. I'm going to go for both A and B. Indeed, df gives reports on disk space usage for file systems, while du shows disk usage of files and directories. Note to self: remind myself of the difference. What one is preferred for, and what one gives extra info for, and that type of thing. I almost always go for df. But I did suspect that du shows it as well. Question 15. What is SE Linux primarily used for in a Linux system? Is it file encryption, user authentication, mandatory access control, or process scheduling? Oh, you know, I thought that SE Linux was a distro. So now I'm a bit confused. What is it used for in Linux? If I were to make a guess, what would it be? I don't know. I don't know. I thought it was a distro. Apparently it is access control. SE Linux stands for Security Enhanced Linux. It's used to enforce mandatory access control policies on a Linux system. I still think this might be a distro, you know. I'm not sure about this. I don't know if the AI is getting confused here and is trying to make a prediction that's just not true. So note yourself, remind myself what SE Linux is. But yeah, that could be an honest mistake by even a human, right? So question 16, which of the following commands would you use to display all currently loaded kernel modules? lsmod, modinfo, insmod, or modprobe? Okay, I've never heard of B and C. I'm pretty sure it's lsmod, to, you know, ls being list. I'm pretty sure it's lsmod, but I've heard of modprobe before. So I'm kind of 80% sure that it's lsmod, but I'm not sure. Let's have a look. How to display all currently loaded kernel modules? And the answer is I was correct. It was lsmod. It displays all currently loaded kernel modules in the Linux kernel, indeed. But note to self, I want to go back and find out what modprobe is. Question 17. In which directory would you typically find systemd service unit files? Is it etc systemd system? Is it var run systemd system? User lib systemd system? Or all of the above? Ooh. All of the above. I hate that trick answer. I don't know. You see, I don't think it's var, because var is where you have logs and things like that. It wouldn't be the right place. And the first one, etc, is where you would typically put config files, and userlib is for libraries. So, I mean, for me, the logical place, if I was forced to answer this question, I would say kind of confidently that it's A, but it's given me a lot of doubt that D. I'm still going to go for A. Let's see what the answer is. Where do you put systemd service unit files? Unit files being configuration files. I think. Oh, the answer is all of the above. They can find all of the above directories. With the etc one, typically used for user-defined services. Okay, so it could be that system-defined services are elsewhere. Note to self, have a look again at how you define services, because I must admit, it's not something that I often look at. I don't often define my own services. I've done it on occasion. I've done it when I have wanted to create an app and then create a service for an app so that it's more stable. It doesn't need to be run from a shell script or something. You know, so you have a Python script that maybe you want to serve from a VM, and you probably put something like Nginx on there so that it's all proxied and can be served. There's an HTTP endpoint there, and all of that you need to be served as a service. So the HTTP, the web server probably comes built in with a service, but your Python service needs to be defined as well. So that's something I need to look back into. Note to self. Question 18. Which command can be used to change the hostname of a running Linux system? Is it hostname ctl set tac hostname? Is it hostname? Is it sysctl? Or is it both A and B? To change the hostname. I don't know. I'm a bit surprised if hostname alone does it, but maybe there is a kind of a switch. Let's see what the answer is. Both A and B, indeed. Both commands can be used, but hostname ctl set tac hostname is the recommended method in modern systems. That's the one I recognize, hostname ctl. Interesting. Must look at that. Again, note to self. You know, I haven't scored amazingly well, but this is the kind of thing. This is kind of you know, this challenge is a good warning to me to say, hey, don't head into a Linux or a heavy Linux role without covering some of these topics that you got blind spots in. So I'm glad that I did this. So what is the primary purpose of the swap space in Linux? Is it to store temporary files? Is it to provide additional virtual memory? Is it to enhance disk performance? Or is it to manage user sessions? Well, it's not D. So, I mean, I know what swap is, right? Swap is a dedicated, usually partition of hard drive space that allows the system, when it starts to run out of real memory, which inevitably it will, to use a slower form of memory, virtual memory, which is on a hard drive, and literally use that as a kind of working area and sort of swap the contents of real memory into swap temporarily and back and forth, and use it. It's able to use it as if it had more memory than it really does, more RAM than it really does, albeit some of it will be slower because it's hard drive based. So to store temp files, it sounds like that, but it's not that. Temp files is something completely different. That's not swap space. B, to provide additional virtual memory. Well, actually, that is virtual memory. It's not really additional. It's actually, that is the only virtual memory in my mind. But I think it's getting at B. To enhance disk performance. It's not really enhancing performance of the disk. It's kind of enhancing memory performance in the sense that if we didn't have this extra failsafe, then the system would definitely get bogged down if all it had was just regular RAM. So I think it's B. So let's see what the answer is for 19. Indeed, to provide additional virtual memory. Swap space is used as an extension of physical memory, allowing the system to handle larger workloads by temporarily moving inactive pages from RAM. Indeed. The only part I disagree with is I don't call this additional virtual memory. I just call this virtual memory. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the whole entire memory space, including physical memory, is called virtual memory. So I could be wrong there. Note to self to have a look on that. And finally, we're on the last question, number 20. Which command is used to create a new user in Linux? Is it user add? Is it add user? Is it both A and B? Or is it user mod? So I'm pretty sure that it's user add. At least that's the one that I use. Now maybe there's add user as well, but I'm perfectly happy to say that the only command I know and the only one I use and the only one I really care for is user add. It's not user mod. That is for changing things like group membership, but we just want to create a new user. So I'm pretty sure it's a user add. Turns out that you can also use add user. Both user add and add user can be used to create new users. Although add user is often more user-friendly on some distributions. Interesting. I get the feeling that add user is interactive, but I'm used to user add, which is used on the command line, which frankly is, if I'm right, if add user is interactive, you wouldn't want to use that in a script. So I'm perfectly happy with only knowing the command line version, but I'll be very curious to see what add user does. I'm not aware of that. I don't typically learn things that are really heavily interactive. For example, when it comes to editing a file, I will use Vi or Vim. I will not use, for example, Nano. Nothing wrong with that, but to me, I'm just more used to using Vim and Vi, and that I prefer to err on the less interactive side. So look, that was 20 questions for Linux system administration that can be used in a screening test or to just test yourself. Are you ready for an interview? That kind of thing. Do you know your shit, basically? So I hope you really enjoyed this like I did as well. If you did, please give this video a like. Please subscribe to the channel. We're almost at the time of recording this, almost 200 subscribers on almost 100 videos. Please, I would love to see you share this on especially any social media, but especially Reddit would be awesome, because I know there's a lot of people who are into this kind of stuff there, just like you and I. So thank you for coming along for this test, for this experience, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.